So, all right, well, welcome to the CLG meeting on, what is it? June 20, I'm just going to take a stab at it, 28,
27.
27. Okay, I just gave it an extra day in case I missed one. And in attendance, we have, should I make a roll call?
Of the HTC, yes, please.
Yeah. Okay, so we have Carrie Thornwell.
Sorry,
You can just say
here,
aye.
here, I,
Val Oliver.
Here,
Is Angus there yet?
not yet.
Okay, is Connie there?
I'm here. Hi,
Hi, Connie.
hi, Abby.
And
Go.
Paul, is Joe Paul?
Yes,
Joe.
present.
Thank you, Joe. And I think that's it, isn't it?
Yep.
And myself. And yeah, so we're in attendance. Anything else you want me to say?
Acceptance of the agenda.
Oh, yeah, okay. Do I hear a motion to accept the agenda?
I'll make that motion, Madam
Thanks,
Chair.
Val. I guess we'd have to do roll call again. Val, on your motion?
Aye.
Connie?
Hi,
Joe?
Aye.
Carrie, I,
Carrie, thank you, and myself, I, and that's good. All right, we've got the agenda confirmed.
Thank you, Madam
Anything-
Chair. Off to the Historical Commission, Rita.
Our chair of the Nantucket Historical Commission calling the meeting.
She's fading out.
So Commission
Rita,
yes.
we can only hear like every other word.
Oh shoot.
Sorry.
Can you hear me now?
Better.
Okay. I'll try that again. So this is Rita,
Nope, you're frozen.
the Certified Local Government Commission meeting to order on June 27th, 2020.
You're frozen again.
Okay, I'm gonna turn off my video and see if that helps.
Okay. Sometimes that's good, yeah.
Yeah, I just got a message. My internet connection is unstable. Do I sound better now with the
Yes.
video?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
great. So, one more time, this is Rita Carr calling to order the Friday, June 27th, Nantucket Historical Commission meeting to order for the Certified Local Government Commission meeting. Please confirm if you can hear me, commission members. Clement Durkees. Clement? Did we lose her?
I think so. She was
Okay.
here.
Oh, okay, great. George Butterworth.
Here.
Thank you. Abby DeMolina
here.
and Angus McLeod.
Here.
Great. And Rita Carr, I'm here as well, so that we have a quorum. And then do I hear a motion for the acceptance of the agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll
Second.
Thank you very much. On that motion, Angus?
Aye.
If you just said George, aye.
Thank you, George. Abby?
I,
And I'm an I as well. Thank you.
I'm here if you
Yeah,
can
what
hear
about
me. This is,
Oh,
this
great.
is
Okay.
Clement.
Thank you, Clement.
Yeah, I'm here. I might fade in and out though, so sorry about that, but I'm here.
All right. Thank you, Clement.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chairs. Welcome, everybody, commissioners, as well as I think we have some staff, as well as some members of the public. So thank you for attending today. You know, this is our required meeting between the two commissions for our certified local government membership, the Federal Preservation Program that we are all a part of. Just to remind everybody, if you look at the last page of our agenda, these are our responsibilities under the CLG. And this is the Federal Preservation Program that we are a part of. One of the greatest benefits is not only are we acknowledging our town of Nantucket's local government commitment to historic preservation as something we've continued on since really before the creation of the local historic district in 1955, but also to basically strengthening our involvement in the preservation program involved with the National Park Service and our State Historic Preservation Office, our SHPO, which is MHC, as well as our federal funding capabilities, which is to be determined at the moment. On that, I want to show our CLG discussion, what we have on the agenda. I don't know if Madam Chair Rita, if you wanted to take this on with item A, since you and the chair of the HDC talked about creating this agenda for today.
Sure. Well, for item A, the super index is something that we had discussed at the CLG meeting a year ago. And that was really Stephen, pushing behind that. So I'm not sure if perhaps it would be best to hold off discussion of that until he is available.
Sounds good. I don't know if any member of the entire commission wanted to touch base on that, or just we want to move to the next item.
I'm
Why
not
don't
even
we
sure
move-
what it is.
Yeah, I think I have an idea and it sounds great, but I don't know either. So maybe, yeah, Rita's right. Maybe we just go on to B and hold that for Stephen to tell us about it.
Sounds good. What I can do though is briefly just say that building with Nantucket in mind, as we all know, is that those guiding principles that the HDC uses day in, day out for your applications. The Historical Commission realizes that there are some longstanding items in there that seem to be some hiccups as we go along with reviews. Case in point, some dormers or some things that the application sometimes don't really necessarily address, and how providing a index would help. This is something that Stephen did bring up, but of course, building with Nantucket in mind, we eventually would like to codify it and do tack on all those addendums at some point. So that is to be determined, and maybe we can bring that up at another subsequent meeting. Sorry, he wasn't able to attend. I guess I will segue into our education. So as you all know, you probably get bombarded with emails from me as your coordinator, but education is key and is important for not only staff, commissioners, but also anybody in the town leadership. We are members of the National Alliance of Preservation Commissions, thankful to our CLG status. The state of Commonwealth of Massachusetts through the MHC and the SHPO was able to utilize the federal funding that's allocated to CLGs for our membership. So if you are not receiving direct line of communication from NAPC for webinars, please reach out to me and I will make sure you get those, as well as the membership is free for these webinars. There's some that are discounted. I would highly encourage anybody, even if you think, oh, that's really a cool topic, I want to learn about that, but I might not be able to attend, go ahead and register, because what they'll do is they'll follow up with you with the PDF of the actual discussion, as well as a link to view the webinar itself at your leisure. So I highly recommend, if you can attend, just go ahead and sign up. This past week, actually yesterday, there was a webinar about design guidelines. So hopefully maybe some of the HDC commissioners were able to listen to that. Very, very good things about that. Education is something that we also, through our CLG report that is due at the end of the fiscal year, something that I'm required to do. I try to indicate in the report who from staff as well as commissioners are attending some of these webinars, whether they're from NAPC, even locally at NPT, or any other preservation or architecture type of education. Please let me know. I would love to just kind of know what you're doing, even if it's or something that you're aware of that I might not be aware of. It's important for us to emphasize that we are doing continuing education, although it's not required. That I think it's something that the commissions would like to see that as more an engagement. On another topic, when it comes to education, is something that Historical Commission has been involved with, and I don't know if our HDC members are aware, but there's been a few years that members of the Historical Commission, myself, and Mary Bergman from NPT have been doing the Nantucket Realtors education component. So the Nantucket Association of Real Estate Brokers, NARAB, they are required to do their continuing ed. And with that, they're required to also know about, well, historic structures. So what better way of having a specific Nantucket centric type of class? And we are scheduled to do that this fall in October. So that will be something that I think will help. I can tell you, when we've done it in years past, members from the pub that are realtors that were in attendance were very happy. I've had quite a few of them come up to me afterwards, actually kept in touch, asked me. I actually get emails quite a bit from a couple of them asking questions about historic structures that may be going on the market. So this is a really good thing about having them educated and knowing what is available as far as history and information and such. So is there any questions on that?
Yeah, I had one question. I'm trying to find my my hand. Okay, there it is. Raise a hand. Okay. Okay, so I was wondering if there's anybody specifically from the real estate. Is there a spokesperson from the real estate agencies that we have a contact with? I don't know. I guess we all know real estate agents. You can't avoid them, but it would be nice to have a contact person.
I guess I can answer that. Yes, as far as through NARAB themselves, they have a couple of their members who are part of their education board or that function of their organization. So those are my direct contacts, at least for this type of class that we want to educate. So I'm not sure what you're looking for, but what I would love to hear is what additional information or what information you would like us to emphasize to realtors on behalf of the HDC.
Yeah, that will definitely, quite like you said, some people are reaching out to you to find out the history of buildings. I often have I have one friend in real estate, mainly in Sconset, and she's always asking, well, this person is thinking of buying it, but how much renovation can they do? Yeah, that would be something to cover, because I think that's what people are looking for. how much can they do to a historic house?
Any other HTC members?
So I was able to watch the NAPC webinar on creating and updating design guidelines. And it reminded me how important it is for them to be current. The way they were talking about it, there were 4 speakers from different historic districts, and it was a very comprehensive guidelines that are kept up to date. They said if it's been more than 10 years, this is something that you need to update. So we've known that for a long time, and we need to we need to figure out how to get to that. But anyone who hasn't seen it, Holly, you're usually really good about forwarding the links to that, but most of them are available, not all, but most of them are available if you're not able to attend, so you can watch it in your spare time. But I loved how specific everything was, especially, well, I mean, the goal was that any question posed to the HDC was a yes or no answer. In other words, there's nothing left to interpretation, or very little. And it made things easier for everybody, the applicants, the reviewing HDCs. And so anyway, just another reminder that that's something we need to focus on. And maybe that is something we can arrange to do sooner than later. I think the super index really was intended to make the information that is in Building with Nantucket in Mind more accessible, because a lot of it is dialogue rather than being very direct with the guidelines. And so anyway, I think that was the intention. I'm sorry Steve had a loss in his family. But maybe we can meet another time or do a focus group or something. But I think that was going to be the first step in sort of working with Building with Nantucket in Mind to make it more useful to a broader audience. Working at the HDC, we're faced often with things that are just straight up inappropriate, that don't meet the guidelines. So that's something that will help us with that, is to educate more people and have that information more readily available. Okay, that's it.
I'd like to raise my hand. In terms of education, this is sort of a different tack, but I was just in Marine Home Center picking up some catalogs for windows, and there was a customer in there looking at windows, and I'm thinking to myself, she needs to know that she needs to apply to the HDC if she wants to change out her windows. And then also for in the old historic districts, that wood windows are pretty much our go-to for historic homes. Just simple details like when to apply and what kind of windows you can use. It would be great, like we have a NARA representative, it would be great if we could go around and talk to Marine Home Center in an official capacity, as well as Island Lumber, places like that, who they know that people have to apply, but they don't always say it. And I think when there are these new showrooms, that should be sort of, a sign on the wall to remind the salespeople and homeowners who are looking at things like that, that they need to apply. Thanks, that's it.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Could I chime in
No.
just, oh,
Oh yeah, go ahead. Rita.
sorry, just unrelated necessarily to the NARA of education that we'll be doing in the fall, but just more broadly, even Holly, when you and Stephen and I met to set this agenda, it was something we talked about was doing education not only for us as commissioners, but also just more broadly in the public or with other stakeholders in town and value of historic preservation more broadly and why this is important and why we're here and, you know, maybe encouraging members of the select board or other staff in other departments or to attend something like some of these NAPC webinars or even to bring speakers to Nantucket to make a presentation to a select board meeting or to an MPNEDC meeting. Somebody like Donovan Ripkema, who's an economist who studies historic preservation, who came to Nantucket in 2019 as part of the Keeping History Above Water conference. Or somebody like Sarah Bronin, who is an architect and lawyer who was the chair of the Federal Advisory Council on Historic Preservation, who stepped down from that role in January, but she just published a book called How Zoning Shapes Our World, which was really interesting and you know, has a lot to do with historic preservation and zoning together and how they can work together. So those were just some ideas that we were tossing around as well. And I hope you could hear me. I'm sorry.
No, we could. Thanks, Rita. And I would second all of that. Donovan is a fantastic resource. If you all haven't looked at place economics, just Google it. And you can find a lot of case studies across the country that his group have done on the economics of historic preservation. It's been really, really helpful. And I would love to see Donovan back on Nantucket. That would be super. And then also Sarah Bronin, her book, I actually have it. I started reading and I haven't finished it, but it's a good book so far. I was very happy when she got on the advisory council, so I was sad to hear her leave. If there's any other comments on education, if not, we can go on to the survey work. I wanted to bring that back up. So as you all know, we became a CLG in 2021. And within that that same time frame, actually right before we got our acceptance as the 27th community within Massachusetts to be a CLG, we received that federal funding to create our survey plan for the entire island, which is the map behind me is actually one of our historic maps for the town, but I chose this for our survey plan. For me, it's one of those maps that show it's very inclusive because it actually shows where Native American sachems were on the island. So it's pretty neat. With that, we were able to also do the fish lots. And I know the HDC is well aware now, I think, of those updated Form Bs. So I'm very happy to see applicants as well as commissioners use those for their applications that come before the commission. And then in fiscal 22, we were able to finish. We actually just recently finished within this past 6 months with PAL. And they started Brant Point. They were only about to do about 40 or so, maybe about 50 within Brant Point. You know how complicated a lot of the stuff that's going on Brant Point is, but they were able to finish the fish lots and do Brant Point. We're waiting for MHC to get them in their MACRIS database. They are available here at the office. They are available digitally as well. I can provide those to us. Hopefully we'll have the link on the website shortly, but then they will also be available readily on the GIS once MACRIS has that available. Very, very excited about that. Currently, we, through the Historical Commission and myself, we applied for CPC funding on behalf of the Historic District in general to work with the University of Florida to target, I'll go down here, this is the survey plan and where we divided up the island into 59 different neighborhoods. We are working on the West Monomoy area of the survey plan That is the New Guinea, Newtown, Five Corners neighborhood, and the University of Florida students. This PIN class right now is going to be continuing working on that. And I really do think that what the work that they're going to be doing with this project is going to be more of a recon, if you will. You need to actually find the research, find the information first before you can actually create the forms. A lot of people don't realize that there was a lot of work done with the fish lots because of the work that NPT has done over the years with house histories, former PIN students with HABs documented property. So there was already a lot of research done, not all of it, but a lot of it. We're going to be finding out as we target through surveying the island that we're going to have to do these, what we call recons. And of course, at the end of the day, what is the goal? The goal is to create these Form Bs. This is a copy of one of the recent Form Bs that was done on Main Street with this past batch that was approved with MHC. And this is more of a comprehensive. I will tell you this from my discussions with other preservationists around, even with my friends over at PIN, that is that Massachusetts Form Bs are very intense. They've come a long way since 1989 or 88, 89, when Nantucket was doing those lovely, what we call windshield surveys that we see, the old HDC surveys. You have a lot more information from the architectural description, the historical narrative, and down to even the bibliography that you'll see. And that bibliography comes right into the survey plan. That's the framework where that comes from. You'll also see when we have architects or builders that are prominent on Nantucket, you'll see even down to their historical information. So their birth date, their death date, who they married, what other properties that they built. So it's really a social and cultural narrative, if you will. And I think I know I appreciate seeing all this information. There's so much information, and we'll also find that out with this survey work coming up within the New Guinea area. So I'll keep you all posted how the PIN project is going. I know they will too. They kicked off their class. I was there this past week. I'm giving them an introduction to the Nantucket HDC and the history in general of preservation here, which was fun. I love doing that every year. And then the next project is we have a current grant right now, fiscal 23. The RFQ went out twice, once with a respondent that didn't meet the qualifications. Again, same thing. So we have to revise that. MHC has given us permission to do that. And hopefully we can get that going. I've had some hiccups along the way with just procurement changes, if you will. But that is the goal. And then hopefully, if this isn't on your radar, I know it's on the Historical Commission's radar. There are changes to the Historic Preservation Fund at the federal level. That is where our CLG money comes from. It's allocated from Congress. Each state historic preservation office receives funding, and then 10% is required to go to certified local governments. Congress has approved back in March of this year, the fiscal year 25 dollars for the Historic Preservation Fund. However, they haven't been released. So there's been pressure to our representatives to release that funding so that the state historic preservation offices can continue fund very important initiatives. But there's also a proposal at the federal level to completely slash the Historic Preservation Fund. That would be a detrimental impact to preservation across this country. So whenever we can advocate to our representatives is the best thing to do. And I look forward to seeing what Preservation Action, which is the largest nonprofit lobbyist for historic preservation in the country. They do a lot of lobbying to make sure that we're going to continue to receiving some changes, not only to retain our HPF funding, but also changes to hopefully the historic tax credit process. There's been a lot of push to that. Does anybody have any questions on that? All of that? No? Okay. And as you know, you can always reach out to me if you have any specific questions. I highly encourage it. I wanted to also bring to the commission's attention, I did bring this up to the chairs of each respective board. There is currently a proposed bill within the Senate and the House of Massachusetts, Commonwealth, to amend the Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 40C, which is the section of historic districts. Of course, we don't follow that. We have our special enabling legislation, the Special Act. But we do follow Chapter 48D for the Historical Commission. Right now, this is the bill. This is the proponent of the bill and where they are located. This would have some detrimental changes and maybe some unintended consequences to historic districts that already, one, have a process for demolitions, and two, it would require, it basically is getting rid of the local control, and it would basically have the state telling us how we handle demolitions at the end of the day. I, on behalf of the commissions, or both the HDC and the Historical Commission for the CLG, I have put in a request to town council through their respective process to see what this would do to our special act, or does our special act supersede it? There's a lot of questions. I have also reached out to our fellow special acts up in Beacon Hill. They are also looking at this and watching it. I did also share, and if you're not on the Mass Hist Preservation listserv, please let me know and we can get you on there. It's a state preservation planning listserv, in addition to the planners listserv that is in the state. This one, there's been a lot of talk and discussion about what the unintended consequences are of this bill. So I just wanted to bring that up, and I know we spoke about it at the Historical Commission's meeting recently. Maybe I'll leave that off to the Historical Commission, Rita, if you all wanted to talk about that for a little bit.
Sure, yeah. So we discussed this last week at our NHC meeting, and we're sort of unclear on to how this will exactly impact Nantucket. But sent a comment letter essentially just saying encouraging further outreach to the historic preservation community in the state, because as was noted by Holly, the state senator who is sponsoring this bill did so without any outreach to either the Massachusetts State Historical Commission or to Preservation Massachusetts. So I just sent in a comment on behalf of the NHC encouraging that there be more outreach to, historic preservation organizations statewide before this moves forward. But Holly, I mean, it sounds like this doesn't really, like, people don't expect this to actually become law, is what it sounds like.
That's what it sounded like to me. I was actually happy to see the comments from our former CLG state coordinator, Jennifer Doherty, who actually is a preservation planner now with Barrett Planning Group, who's actually in charge of our master plan update, which is great. She provided an extensive comment that she shared with the rest of us preservationists in the state, but she also what she sent to the legislature. So yes, it sounded like from some of the conversations that's going back and forth on the listserv that this might just die, but we want to be ahead of it because we don't know what those unintended consequences are to this and what happens or the implications with our special act. How does that with the two commissions together. There's other communities that utilize their historical commission from the demo process, as you are aware. So anyway, just wanted to bring this up to both commissions' attention, that this is something that's floating around right now. There's also a couple other things that are floating around there. One recently I just came across about, which I think Megan might know a lot more on, but having to do with the Housing Production Act. So stay tuned. Just wanted to bring this to everybody's attention. Don't know if anybody else has any comments on that. All right. Let me go back in. Sure. All right. So the next thing, I guess I'll leave this to Rita. You all had a comment on here about preservation stuff.
Yeah, well, this is again something. So Stephen, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
And just as something, it would be good for, the CLG commission as a whole to
You're in and out.
Yeah.
Nothing.
No. Okay, I am going to try and just log in on my phone.
I guess I'll take the opportunity to just mention we have a colleague here that is continuing education in preservation, which is awesome. Happy to see that. Encourage continuing education in preservation, any way, shape, or form.
Who is it?
A land use specialist, Nikki.
Oh, great.
Yes. Very excited for her. She's doing wonders. And PT had a little thing about her. So that's pretty cool. I don't know what else. Rita, are you there?
Yes, can you guys hear me now?
Oh,
Yes.
much better.
Okay, great. I am going to log out of my computer and I'll just be on my phone. Okay, so sorry about that, everybody. So this item on the agenda really came out of one of the recommendations from the NAPC's review of HDC process was that there was a need for more preservation staff in town beyond just Holly, who I think really has just a lot on her plate. And it's very exciting that Nikki is getting this certificate from Boston Architectural College in historic preservation. And I hear she's getting straight A's, which is great. But we thought it might be helpful for us all as the CLG committee to have a discussion about what that might look like and how we might effectively help advocate for more staff in preservation planning.
In the recommendations, what's that specifically about an HDC administrator or just preservation staff in general?
I believe it was more general.
Mm-hmm. It does seem like Holly is really doing their best to straddle all the tasks at hand. Yeah, I mean, the there are always things with the historical commission that that I feel like we could certainly have more of Holly's time, but also at the HTC. There's been a recent change, really without any sort of consultation with the rest of the commissioners. Maybe one or two, I don't know, but Holly, suddenly was removed from the meetings without any sort of heads up. And I think that that's just one of the issues, is that that in lieu of having a HDC staff, dedicated staff and administrator, Holly's pretty much the staff that can get the information that we need. And in the meeting, she's the one has more of an education for this than any of the commissioners, certainly. And so to not have her in the meeting expressing her concerns is, I think, short-sighted. It helps sort of set the tone of the review, and certainly with her experience and knowledge of these properties, there should be a dialogue that starts with how she sees things, and if there's the will of the commissioners, I think needs to be weighing those comments heavily, and if there's something contrary to that, there's got to be a good explanation for it. So anyway, I know that's a bit of a ramble about staff, but it's like that's the most immediate thing in my mind about preservation staff. Thanks.
Thanks, Angus. Madam Chair, Rita, Abby has her hand raised, so she wants to speak.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I agree with Angus that that when we lost Holly at the meetings, when we came to a historic structure, I mean a real something like a historic building, there's this disconnect. And for me, when we hit a real historic building, I like to take a pause and just get all the information we can. And now we don't have that. We don't have that back and forth. The focus seems to be on getting through the agenda. And I fully agree with that. But when it comes down to a historic house, we need those special details, the date, the history, who lived there, who was the architect. We need all of that. And there's just this push to get through the agenda. And I just I really miss that extra history that we got with Holly being at the meeting. So I agree with Angus. Not sure what we can do about it now, but maybe this new person can help out. Thank you.
I can't raise my hand, but I just want to echo that same statement. Holly is such a great asset to us, especially me, because I'm so new at this, that it's a tremendous loss not having her at the meetings and going over all the information. And if there's anything we can do, I'm wholeheartedly behind that. Thank you.
Holly, it looks like Megan has her hand raised.
Looks like Megan has her hand raised and Val has her hand raised.
Yeah.
Hey, so I wasn't really prepared to speak to this item, so I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole, but I just want everyone to remember that, there is staffing that is provided to the HDC. The HDC's primary focus is an architectural review board. The Historical Commission focuses more on the preservation planning aspect of things. Excuse me. And there are administrative level decisions that need to be made on a daily basis, not just with the HDC, but with staffing for other boards, committees, and commissions that really happen on the management level. So I think it might be most effective that if people have feedback on specific things, if they wanted to set up an appointment with either myself or the director to discuss. That's all I had for that.
Whoops.
Go
I don't have a
Go
hand
ahead.
thing to raise either, but
Oh, Val.
I just want to say to my fellow commissioners, Holly does provide us with a written report on all of the items that are important for us to review, and it's incumbent on us to review those prior to the meeting. So she is giving us a lot of information still.
That's a good point, Val. It's a lot for us, what the stack of notes is like that is in front of each of us when we sit down to our meeting. It's a lot to hold in our head from having read it before. When we review 30 projects or whatever, and there might be a dozen that are historic or a dozen and more that might have 3 to 6 or 8 pages of information, and unfortunately, that's not included in the minutes or the record, as if it would be if she were expressing those comments in the meeting live. So that's the concern. If there's something that we vote on and have a discussion about and Holly's part isn't in there, there isn't, that's a significant piece that's missing that time, energy, and money has been put into accumulating.
Can we simply say we adopt Holly's reports as part of the minutes or something? Yeah, it's a lot. I give you, it's a lot. It's a lot to go and see all the things prior to the meeting too, but I think we all got into this knowing what we were getting into, and I miss Holly at the meetings too, but she does provide us the information is my only point.
That's right.
I would say to follow up on your question, Val, about, adopting them with the minutes when the report is posted online, that automatically becomes part of the meeting record. So similar to the zoning board or the planning board, when staff issues a staff report, that just gets entered into the record formally. So that is being done currently.
So I think my understanding is that they're the minutes, which, has the commissioner's concerns and so forth. And then even the public comments are in that. But as far as I know, Holly's comments or her recommendations aren't in that. Like it would be part of the, like for the Historical Commission, there's a view pack or a pack that the meeting packet where it has all the things that we'll discuss. But but it's not part of the minutes, as far as I know. Holly, are your comments in the minutes?
So comments
When-
should not be included in minutes because minutes are a summary of what has transacted during the course of a meeting. So exhibits and application materials and staff comments are submitted formally to be attached to the record through the posting. So through as they currently are in the form of a report.
Thanks, Megan.
All right. Do we have any other comments, or we want to move on to the next topic?
Let's move on.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair. This is something that both the chairs wanted to have on here, which is demolition by neglect. I guess I'll leave it on to you, Rita.
Yes, thank you. So this is a topic that we've come up out of discussion, obviously, with everything surrounding 10 New Whale Street and how could potentially the NHC and HTC work together to try and prevent buildings from reaching such an advanced state of disrepair as we've observed at 10 New Whale. Is it something like, would it be helpful for the HDC if through the NHC sort of recommendations, or there is currently a form that exists to send in a property for review by the NHC for being in violation of the minimum maintenance bylaw for that demo by neglect? Would it be helpful to sort of formalize that process a little bit more through the NHC and the HDC working together? And I would love to hear anybody's thoughts on how we can try and avoid buildings reaching such advanced state of disrepair.
Rita, we have Val and Abby Camp's hand raised.
Thank you. I apologize, I can't see that. But Abby,
Yeah, so I think anything we can do to get more information before a building is destroyed is great. And if we're talking about 10 Whale Lane, is it?
Whale
Uh,
Street.
Whale Street. Yeah, so the board was kind of divided on that. I think if we had you guys behind us, maybe we'd have a little more interest in preservation of of an old structure like that really does have a big part of our industrial history. So I would be in favor of that. Thank you.
Val, did you want to speak?
Yeah, thank you. That project aside, because it's so far gone, it's awful. Is there a way to impose some sort of fine when this starts to happen? I know there was some talk of that when it was the wood box building, but they actually took steps when they got notified to start fixing things up. I'm struggling with having seen, can people fine, and we are told by different lawyers that are involved with the town, you can't, or you can, or sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. I mean, to me, the only way to get people to really pay attention is to hit them where it counts, and that's with money. And if there's no threat whatsoever of any adverse action, it's just going to continue to happen. There's a little building on Atlantic Avenue that's just about ready to implode. Yeah, for me, there has to be a substantial penalty.
Yeah, and that the mechanism for levying fines does exist within the HDC as it stands right now, Holly. Is that correct?
There is, yep. But there is a cumbersome process. I do want just be mindful of, be careful on talking about specific applications that may or may not be
Right,
before
that
the
weren't on
commission.
the
Right.
weren't on the agenda.
Correct. But I also just wanted to mention that, the fining process can be a little bit cumbersome, but I think the intention of this conversation was more or less, how could our historical commission assist the HDC in being kind of like eyes and ears on these type of properties, and how to kind of be proactive, because really at the end of the day there's a lot of reaction that has been taking place.
Yes, and even oh, I'm sorry, Hallie.
I just wanted to mention we have both Abbeys with their hand raised.
Yes. And even, with what Megan said, identifying the HDC as primarily a architectural review board, even though, of course, because of the special act, the HDC does have more powers than that. But with the NHC as being this preservation planning board, from that planning perspective, could the NHC perhaps create some sort of properties of concern list, or as we're going through these surveying projects, are we identifying properties that we think are at risk of demolition by neglect? Can we make those referrals to the HDC and have that, like I was saying earlier, in more of a formalized process?
And before we go to the Abbeys, I would say, yes, we basically did that when we did our first pilot program with the fish lots. Prime example, 29 Fair Street, which is the wood box, as well as 6 Fair Street, which is the bungalow that's now being basically brought back to life, reconstructed. That's part of survey work that's baked into MHC's survey and planning processes, which is pretty cool. So there's that level. Yes, this is what historical commissions do. I would love to see how the two of you all can work on something like this as a collaboration. That would definitely be great. I guess Abby D,
yeah.
you want to speak? Then we'll go to Abby C.
Either one.
I totally agree with Rita, and I was just going to say, I think that would be the next step, since we have identified, I was going to say, using our survey process feels like a natural fit. And I think what we should do is just go, the next step is, ensure that the HDC is aware, if throughout our survey process that we have identified certain properties. And of course, if they come up, that should be a big part of the discussion of hey, we have identified these properties as on the watch list, and maybe there's a regular interval, maybe it's annually, semi-annually, whatever that is, that we let them know these are the properties. So that way, kind of proactively, HDC will know to look for these properties that we have identified them as at risk. So that way it gets, before it's, as Val pointed out, at the point where the building is crumbling and it's almost too late to save. But if we're more proactive about it, then we can at least try and do more enforcement of hey, your property has been identified at risk. Maybe you should do something instead of waiting until it's falling apart. Would just be my 2 cents.
Thank you. And Abby C, did you want to?
Yeah. I like being part of a team. There weren't a lot of Abbeys when I grew up, and now I get to be Abby C. I like that. But I agree with Abby D. And I think collaboration is really important. And also, I think steps to immediately, like we did with the wood box, immediately take steps, put a roof on it, lock the doors so vagrants don't get in. There should be some priorities that go along with the the building that is detrimental. But I wanted to go back to what Val said about hitting them where it hurts. And it's the only way to get the town's attention. And we're probably, if we do have fines, they're probably not levying enough to get their attention because there's so much money out there. We've really got to double or triple that and make a statement to get people's attention. Thank you.
I have a question without a hand signal, but also the HDC does have the ability, I think, that if we see a building that looks like it's neglected, to be able to get access to and see the inside of the building to see if it's really structurally in bad shape. That, you know, the things you can't tell just eyeballing it from the outside. And if you're really concerned about a property, seems like we need to get access inside at some point.
Unfortunately, there is no. The HDC doesn't have the authority on the interior. Or if there is a preservation restriction on a property, and that would be a way where the preservation restriction holder, which is typically somebody like NPT, would have the authority to be able to do that. There is one little thing that I remember our camp, our National Alliance of Preservation Commission's camp trainers brought up about our special act and our Building with Nantucket in Mind design guidelines. It does talk about interior on a specific case. For instance, I'll give you a prime example of an interior that's very important, which would be the Pacific National Bank up the head of Main Street, where they have the murals on the inside. There is some very fine caveats, but for the most part, 99.9% of the time, the HDC does not have any purview on the interior.
I wasn't talking about trying to preserve the interior, but just having access to, so you can see whether the structure is in danger, because there's interior things which are essential to just the building not falling down that you might not be able to tell from the street.
Right. Unfortunately, the HDC's purview is from public way. So, unfortunately, I guess looking at the time, I wanted to, this has been a good conversation discussion. I think next steps is very important. As your coordinator, I despise having to wait to the end of the fiscal year to set up this important meeting. One, two, I would love to encourage some thought and help in thinking about having this more than once a year, as well as in person maybe. I know we've had to be like this because of COVID and trying to accommodate everybody's time, but I would really like to find a time and a location that would work for this commission to meet in person. So I would love to hear some conversation on that before we leave.
I agree. I mean, Holly, it's June, like let's do one in the winter when it's quieter. We can do it in person. I think there's more space available. There'll be less traffic. But I think at a minimum, we should do one in the winter if we're going to have one in the summertime like now.
I agree with Abby. I feel like we should be meeting at least twice a year instead of just barely getting it under the wire for our, to hold the contract for the CLG. There's a lot of work to be done, and I think that a winter and summer is a good thing. Holidays are always tricky, but I think we can somehow figure it out in December or January, something.
Like it.
I agree with that, and I think it would be great to meet in person as well. But sorry, could I just go back quickly to the demolition by neglect topic? I just wanted to propose that we, as the historical commission, coming out of this discussion, that we do move forward with trying to create a list of properties at risk that we would then share with, at an HDC meeting, like present to the HDC. Is that acceptable?
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think, Rita, it sounds like, Holly, maybe we just start with all the surveys we've done and what we might have identified on that already and start there.
Yeah, and I think even within, you know, PIN is currently working on this reconnaissance level survey of the West Monomoy neighborhood, and I can think of even just off the top of my head a few properties that are within that survey area that I think would fall into this category. Yes, Val?
Is there any, I've talked to Holly about this before, but I was a little unclear just because I'm probably a little dense, but is there money somewhere to, you know, perhaps say to someone, your house is falling apart and there's money available to help you?
Mom,
Because in some cases it is like someone who's old and can't get out there and reshingle the side of the building or something. I know that's like a gross example, but you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
It's a really good idea, Val. We actually talked about this of like trying, Holly's nodding her head. We wanted to create some sort of fund for like homeowners who probably couldn't necessarily afford to do these like kind of upgrades, but to help them prevent that. So it's definitely something we have on our radar. We just needed to figure out like how to do the funding mechanism, but that was one of the thoughts of like we have been working on it on the NHC side. Because I agree. I think that's what's great is like we'd love to be able smaller projects like, hey, your windows, like you're saying, your shingles, like things that aren't ridiculous, but like still it might be hard for them, or they just might be like, well, you know, I don't have 10 grand to like replace my windows or whatever that is. And so having like a micro loan program for preservation repairs, it's something that we have on our radar.
great. Thank you.
Yeah. Great. So we will move that forward from the NHC side. Thank you guys. And sorry, Hallie, back to our meeting schedule.
Not a problem. Yeah, so I would I'm glad to hear about the wish to have two. That would be awesome. And then maybe even eventually down the road, maybe have a special about certain specific topics. But I would encourage anybody that has any ideas to send me an email individually, of course, so we can kind of make sure, you know, one, we want to make sure we're open meeting law compliant, but two, just to get some ideas flowing. Glad to hear that. Any other thoughts about next steps and next meeting at all?
Well, so sorry, I just jumped in. Holly, I think we said the next one, let's try to do it in person in the winter. And I think Angus brought up earlier, I'd like to also see if we could have that like sub meeting on the building with Nantucket in mind. Also have that sooner rather than later.
Yes, absolutely. And on that kind of topic, which kind of segues into survey work, you know, the CPC has been able to help us with our survey work in addition to the CLG funding, and we don't know where that is going to go from right now. But CPC is another great way of encouraging preservation projects, and that could be anything from continuing survey work, doing a preservation plan, doing something that's, you know, preservation related. So I just wanted to throw that out there if any commissioners have any thoughts on possible projects to bring it my way. So I guess with that, do we feel good about this quick meeting?
Yeah, I think it's very informative. Yeah, no, I had to skip out of the room, but I'd be in favor of 2 a year and in person would be fine. Sorry.
Sounds good. Thank you, Madam Chair of HTC. Madam Chair of the Historical Commission, do you think it would be a good idea to do a formal vote from both respective boards?
Yeah, we
in
could.
terms-
On what in particular?
On agreeing to having more than one meeting a year.
Oh, okay, sure. Let's take a poll. All in favor of meeting more than once a year, meeting twice a year? Let's see. Joe Paul, are you still there?
I'm here, yeah. I've just been unusually quiet, but I've agreed with everything everybody said. So I'm a yes.
That's good. Connie?
Yes, aye.
Connie, sorry, Carrie
Carrie stepped out.
and Val?
Hi. Yes.
And I'm an I. Thank you.
Me too.
And Angus.
Yeah, what about Angus?
I
It's double
would
duty.
definitely do another meeting, and I think I would go farther to say that it would be in January or January or December.
Sounds good.
Great,
right,
so
Rita?
now, yep, I'll take a vote on that for the NHC. All those in favor of meeting twice a year? Clement,
Aye.
Abby,
Aye.
George,
Aye.
and Angus.
Aye.
And I'm an I as well.
Awesome. All right. And I guess with that, we need to do our formal adjournment of the meeting.
Oh,
So
We
Wait.
have to approve minutes from
Minutes.
last year
yes,
first.
we do. Thank you. I knew there was something else. I hope you all had a chance to read them. They were in the packet I sent, the email.
Sounds like
Hello.
Juliet approved them.
Yeah, sorry, she's a little chatty right now.
And thank you to Juliet's mommy for making these minutes for us.
Yeah, just for the record, I'm also doing the minutes now for this meeting.
Thank you.
Well, I figured since I am guilty of default by success since I did them last time, people probably figured I'd do them this time, so.
Do we need to approve the minutes separately or as one whole group?
Each board needs to take it's separate. So with that, that would be Abby C, if you could chair the
ABC.
HDC.
Okay, so do I hear a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion
So
to
moved.
approve the minutes.
Thank you, Val. Val on your motion.
Aye.
And Joe Paul
Aye.
and Connie,
Aye.
Angus,
Aye.
and myself, I'm an I. Thank you.
Great. NHC, is there a motion to approve the minutes of June 28th, 2024?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Angus on your motion?
Aye.
Clement,
Aye.
Abby,
Aye.
George,
Aye.
I'm an I as well.
Awesome. All right, guys, one more time for an adjournment.
Okay. Shall I do the HDC first?
Yes, ma'am.
So a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Connie. On Connie's motion, Angus,
Aye.
Connie,
Aye.
Val,
Aye.
and Joe Paul,
Aye.
and myself, I'm an I.
NHC, is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Is there a second? All right, Angus on your motion?
Aye.
Clement,
Aye.
Abby,
Aye.
George,
Aye.
and I'm an I as well. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, guys. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.